All right. And we're live, live on Facebook, live on LinkedIn, live on YouTube, 3 channels, one live. Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Duran. I'm the CTO here at Bewire Technologies, and also I run Tech Lounge. And we are so happy that you're here. I have two very important people in here. We have an expert who is going to talk about accessibility, all of those regulations out there. And then we have our CEO, Andrew Somerton, and Rafi Glantz, which is our expert. So thank you for joining us. If you have any questions or any comments, so feel free to just use our chat, and then we'll be able to address any of your questions. I'm a little nervous about the software that we're using. We're using Restream right now, right? So I hope everything worked out very well. In the last stream that we had on Facebook, it was perfect. Everything was flawless. So if there are any hiccups, just send me a text message or something. And we have our team also working from the sidelines, trying to make things happen. I'm here at HQ. So this is the HQ for Bewire Technologies, and it's not a fake background. And also we have Andrew Somerton, which I was looking at his background, and it's absolutely amazing. I love that fireplace. I thought it was just a fake background, but it's not. It's actually real.
I also thought it was fake.
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody who's watching, we all know about fake backgrounds, so I had to go over and move the candle over there to prove it to him. So it's all good.
Mine's real too, but mine's boring enough that it's believable. So
amazing. Rafael, we are so happy to have you in here in our chat, and tell us a little bit about yourself, AccessiBe, what you do, and go right ahead and go ahead.
Thanks, man. It's really great to be here with you guys. I always enjoy my talks with you that are not live in front of everybody, so I'm sure this one will be fun too. Like you said, I'm Rafi. I work for AccessiBe. Before AccessiBe, I was in mostly sales and marketing stuff, and I was very, very lucky to be one of the first employees here about 2 years ago. AccessiBe is web accessibility, basically. To make a very long story short, websites need to be accessible to people with disabilities. Sounds like something that should be pretty obvious to everybody, but unfortunately it's not. And rather than do that manually, we have an automated tool that does it automatically. My job is basically to work with a very wide range of our partners to help them understand how to position accessibility, how to explain it to clients, and also, of course, help with sales. So that is more or less about me. I, on a personal note, did the Israeli military, so I love to talk about guns, but I am not a crazy person, and that's pretty much that.
You love to talk about watches.
Watches, yes.
Also, yes. And, I'll leave you an interesting tidbit on that. So recently, we were very lucky to have a Global Accessibility Awareness Day event here. And we hosted a bunch of different people with different disabilities. And we had a woman who's a very nice lady who happened to be blind, and she was wearing a watch, and a cool looking one at that. And a friend of mine asked her, not in like a rude way, like, hey, why are you wearing a watch? Like, you can't see it. And she goes, very good point. So she flips it open. Like a Nautilus, but not $100,000 piece. And she flips it open, and it has Braille on the dial, so she can actually feel what time it is. Incredible. So I started looking into it. I saw a CNN article about old Soviet watch collecting. Turns out there's a huge community behind it, and they collect pieces that are like less than $100 usually. As it turns out, there were blind people in the USSR as well, and watch companies catered to them. So I actually ordered a couple of Braille watches from eBay for like $30.
Very cool.
That's amazing. Wow. That's amazing. We have a couple of comments already on our chat. So Tim Underwood, thank you so much for joining us. And he's saying it looks fine. Also, we have Alsared saying hello. So welcome aboard. And we're really happy to have you in here.
Guys.
So, Andrew, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? So you're the CEO of Beware Technologies and Rhino Cybersecurity.
I'm very, very proud to head up such an incredible organization like Bewire Technologies and Rhino Cybersecurity. And one of the the things we really pride on is obviously customer service and interaction, and this accessibility aspect is so incredibly important as well. So what we do is we've been reaching out to a lot of our core businesses and letting them know, because I think one of the biggest misconceptions out there is, especially large organizations, is, oh, of course we're compliant, of course we're accessible, and they really just don't know. And I guess maybe that's going to be eventually a question over to you, Raphael. But it was funny because we were sitting around with friends last night talking about it, and he runs a very, very large media company, and I was explaining to him about accessibility, and I was talking about you know um, basically individuals that have disabilities, and it represents about 20% of our population, and that they're not necessarily creating an accessible um, user experience on their websites. And he's like, oh, no, of course we have it. Of course we have it. And sure enough, I do a quick little check, and partial compliant. So I guess that's another question for you, Raphael, too. Maybe explain the difference later on. But we've been in business for 12 years. And like I said, in technology and cybersecurity, but part of that is education to our clients, and bringing new technology, new advancements, new services to them. And we pride ourselves, like I said, on that, and partnering with organizations like with Raphael, and bringing solutions to help companies be compliant, provide better service and solutions to their businesses is what we love to do. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's who we are a little bit, or what we kind of do, and we're very happy to be doing it.
Exactly.
And happy that we're doing it with you, Raphael.
Yeah. So
Happy to be here.
that's one of the things that we actually pride ourselves on. It's basically providing clients with the latest technology on different things, and one of them is AccessiBe widget and all the AI that has underneath, which we're going to talk about the technology in a little bit. So and the main driver for this is actually we're here in Canada, and as you can see, I'm wearing my Canada t-shirt and my Canada hat. So happy Canada Day to everybody. It was yesterday, July 1st. Today is July 2nd, but it's Canada weekend, right? So the AODA, so the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, it got extended because of COVID, and the deadline already passed. So I think the deadline was June 30th, so a couple of days, right? And
Yes.
all websites need to be accessible, right? So Raphael, if I can ask you, what is really accessibility? One of the things is that when I started doing the research, right, I found that in my notion of it is that you have a website and it's automatically for people that are blind, but that's not the case. Can you please talk about accessibility, what it is, and who are we targeting?
Absolutely. So first of all, definitely happy Canada Day to everybody. I am originally from Detroit, so I was raised to hate all of your hockey teams, but your people are very friendly.
Oh.
So
The Habs are playing the Stanley Cup, and they're down 2-0. So
yeah,
against Lightning.
guys, with the Red Wings lately, it's too depressing for me to watch hockey. So anyway, that's the truth. But as far as accessibility, you're absolutely right. Usually people will think of somebody who's blind, because generally that's what people think of when you think of somebody who can't interact with the internet in the usual way. But there's actually a super wide range of disabilities, everything from color blindness to motor impairments. You can think of Stephen Hawking. You could also think of somebody who may have a seizure-related disorder. Actually, epilepsy and seizure-related disorders are the only way that a website can physically hurt a person. In 1997, there was an episode of Pokemon. I know it's a real throwback, but I'm a big Pokemon guy. I actually still use an Android because you can have a Game Boy Advance emulator there, so you can play old Pokemon games. There was an episode of Pokemon that did not have any warnings before a whole bunch of flashing lights came up, and over 600 children were hospitalized.
Wow.
As a result.
Yeah.
Yeah, and most people don't realize this, but the first time I encountered something like that was even in middle school, when one of those Kanye West videos came out. I think it was All of the Lights. It had a lot of flashing lights, and there was a warning right before the video comes up. Hey, if you have epilepsy or a seizure-related disorder, don't necessarily watch this video. And accessibility is a comprehensive thing, because there is as many types of disability as there are types of people. For example, not everybody who's colorblind is colorblind the same way. So the standards for accessibility are the WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And it's basically a 1,000-page guidebook that goes into what an accessible website's supposed to
Mm-hmm.
look like. Here's the problem. How are you going to read a 1,000-page guidebook and then spend the rest of your life making your website accessible? That's just not going to
Exactly.
happen. You have business to do. You have stuff to do. And while this is absolutely important and also the law, it has to be feasible as well.
Exactly.
So what we did was we created an automated tool that does it for you. The easiest way I know to explain it is rather than having a human developer work on this day in, day out, you have to contact them every time you update your website to update the accessibility, we taught a robot to do it. And the robot doesn't eat, doesn't sleep, it doesn't get paid, and until Terminator comes, it doesn't get mad. And that's more or less accessibility.
Yeah. Can you talk about how hard, for example, is because we've done this job many times in our company's history, and that's why we're so excited because partnering with a company like AccessiBe, because we've done this in the past, and there's a few things, and maybe I can talk about it, but it is extremely hard to make a website accessible, especially when it's AA or AAA, which are I'm going to ask you what are the differences, but it is hard to make a website accessible, and not only that, but to maintain the website, it's fairly difficult as well. So every time you go on the back end and you create new content, you have to make sure that it's accessible and all of that, and it takes time. It takes effort. It's a fairly expensive ordeal. So can you tell me the difference between AA, AAA for the people that are hearing right now?
Sure. So WCAG has 3 levels of compliance. By the way, you might see 2.0, 2.1, 2.2. So those are just versions that come out. The current version's 2.1, 2.2 is coming soon. We actually just joined the World Wide Web Consortium, so we're going to be part of the body that makes these decisions and puts out the new rules. So when 2.2 rolls around, you can be sure we're ready for it. I like to think of it like the old story about the 3 bears, right? So one porridge is too cold, one is too hot, and one is just right. A is too cold, it's not enough. It's just very basic accessibility that doesn't really do the job. AA is just right. AA gives you the accessibility that you actually need to make it usable. And AAA is too hot. AAA it's the ideal. We'd love for there to be next to every video, another video of somebody doing sign language. We would love for there to be all of these things. But for the vast majority of businesses, that is just unattainable, both because of time constraints and financial constraints. Like you mentioned, having to have a developer go back and do all of this work every time you update the website means a lot of developer hours. And Dan, your time is not cheap, is it? So I'll give you an example.
Well, we're fairly affordable, by the way. So
We're
if you're looking for a website or any type of work,
you're cost effective, no question. But the problem is, if you're going to have to go back and do hundreds of hours of work for one person, you have to bill per hour. You know, and developers are skilled employees; they're skilled laborers, to say the least.
Absolutely.
So it's not as though you can pay them minimum wage.
Absolutely.
We actually have a major partner with thousands of websites. They were, before they started working with us, they made a real push for accessibility because they knew that it was important. They actually built a custom CMS that a content management system that prevented their clients from uploading new images and other content without proper alt text, ARIA labels, and stuff like that. It literally would not allow the upload. They still had so many accessibility problems that they needed
because
to
you know when
have
you
AccessiBe for everybody.
The main thing is when you're forced to do things, you might not do it the best way either. For example, like I can upload an image and I just in the alt tag I can call it image 123, and that will be totally fine in terms of the code. However, we all know that means nothing for a person who actually needs to read or understand what that image is, right? So
100%.
A question for Andrew. So Andrew, we have about 27 people on board, and we have a few that have disabilities, and we're always looking for ways. Looking for ways to make our place more accessible to people. How important is it from an CEO perspective to be able to cater and provide this type of services?
It's critical. I mean, everybody talks about culture and equality and making sure that everybody's equal and having all the right tools to be successful. And so not only your clients, but your employees, your staff, your colleagues, all need the same functionality, need the same tools to be able to work efficiently and effectively and safely. So to answer your question, Dan, it's critically so. I mean, obviously critically important. We take care of that. I mean, in our organization, and again, we're very fortunate. It's all about advancement. We always talk about training, but it's all about making sure that everybody has the right tools to be
Yes.
successful, and this is a
Yes.
big part of that.
And in our website, if you go to our website, bwire.ca, you will see that widget in there, right? So what does it say that about being a good corporate citizen?
Well, I think I think personally, and maybe Raphael, you can comment on this. I mean, I think there's certain criterias that are government regulated that you have to be compliant based on size, based on certain things. And again, maybe you can talk about that directly. But I think it's not. I think it's bigger than that. I think it's more about, again, unity. It's about accessibility. It's about everybody being able to use the tools that they're provided. It's also about 20% of the global population that have disabilities potentially are not going or being a part of your website, and it's bigger than compliance. It's about just making sure things are done right for everybody.
Exactly, and that's the thing from an operations perspective. You can be accessible, right? You can make your website accessible, and you can meet the minimum criteria, right? So change your code, fix it up, make sure it's accessible, AA, and then you're meeting the minimum requirements. However, using the widget, I recommend you to go to bwire.ca and check it out. It's right there on the bottom right corner. It goes far beyond what the minimum requirements are. It has so much, it's so resourceful for people that have different types of accessibility issues or and discapacities. So can you, Raphael, maybe talk about the features and the things that the AccessiBe widget has?
For sure. So number one, we have all different kinds of profiles for people with different disabilities that automatically turn on adjustments they need. Everything from ADHD to epilepsy, seizure-related disorders, to blind users and keyboard navigation for motor impaired users. But on top of that, we have a ton of changes that you can make, like night mode, which is useful for everybody, not just for people who might see differently. For people who may have a specific color blindness, you can choose specific colors for the background, for the text, for the titles. We even have an online dictionary for people who, in theory, may have cognitive disorders, maybe dealing with Alzheimer's. But on top of that, it's also for people who might speak English as a second or third language, which is definitely a thing in Canada. And you know what? Those people's money is still the same color. There's no reason that you wouldn't cater to those individuals.
Exactly.
There's so many things that AccessiBe does, and I would echo what you said, Dan. Definitely go over to Be Wired and check it out and test it for yourself, because you will enjoy seeing it. But as I want to touch on just being that good corporate citizen as well, because it's not just a great opportunity for positive PR. It's not just a great opportunity to let your employees and your customers know that you're welcoming everyone to your store. It's also a huge revenue opportunity. Like Andrew said, 20% of the world's population lives with a disability. Now, we actually recently launched a nonprofit arm of our company called AccessiFind. One of the issues with Google is that if you search for something, you're going to get mostly inaccessible results and some accessible results, and you have no way to tell which is which until you click on them. AccessiFind gives you, it's the world's first search engine for only accessible websites, and we're doing it in partnership with the Christopher Reeve Foundation, with the Viscardi Center, a lot of nonprofits. So having AccessiBe on your website automatically puts you into there. And as an example, it opens you up to this whole new market that is shown to be incredibly brand loyal, because when somebody decides to cater to this community is going to support you and keep coming back, even at additional costs. And I'll add the last thing on that. If you're on Google, and let's say you're a plumber, right? If you're on Google, you're competing with every other plumber in the world for SEO. on Access Find, you're competing with like 20 other people because so few websites are accessible. It's literally less than 2%
Exactly.
of the websites are accessible. So it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
So is it,
And,
Raphael? Is it safe to say then basically anybody? I mean, as this community starts to grow, that 20% that we talk about will kind of be that'll be their Google resource to go to because it only makes sense. That's where they're going to be going all the time to find
Absolutely.
accessible websites. Yeah. Wow.
Absolutely.
Cool.
I think it's going to be an awesome resource for a lot of people.
yeah, and there are all other things too, right? So the first one is, if we're talking about features, did you know that almost 50% of users use their mobile to go into websites? If you don't know that, well, AccessiBe is also available on mobile. So if you hit, for example, bewire.ca using your mobile, you'll be able to actually see the little mobile widget and do the same things that you can do on the desktop version, right? So that's the first thing. The other thing that I wanted to point out is Bewire, it works with some multinational billion-dollar corporations. Those are our clients. And sometimes, like we're in Ontario and then we abide by AODA, so the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. However, there's a whole bunch of other regulations. We have the ADA, for example, for companies that operate in the States, or we have the European version of it, which I forgot the name of it. But can you tell us, for example, what other regulations does AccessiBe target?
Yeah, so IS 5568 is probably the first one that's in Israel. And it's probably the most stringent as well. It's why we started creating this, because our founders had a digital agency. And immediately after this law was sort of talked about and right before it was passed, their clients started asking them, hey, why didn't you make my website accessible? And their answer was basically, well, and not in a bad way, but you paid us $3,000 for the website. If you wanted it to be accessible, it was going to be 15. That's why. And the person would usually go, oh, okay. So they realized that, this is an issue and we need to fix it. On top of that, you have the Section 508 in the US that affects government agencies and public companies. You have EN 301549 in the EU. You do have laws that are starting to come out in the UK that impact government agencies and a couple of other verticals. And I know that laws are starting to come out in Asia and in Australia as well. It's really not a choice anymore to be accessible. It's more a question of when and not if everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly with the Biden administration in charge now, it appears that they're really putting a strong push towards accessibility. They actually made the White House website accessible finally, which is amazing it took this long.
Woohoo!
And right, and they put out a call for accessible developers. They are trying to fix this issue.
Absolutely.
So hopefully we will see more traction in that direction soon.
Exactly. So in Ontario, the law passed a few years ago. However, it got extended. As we all know, June 30 was the deadline, and after June 30, the fines can get really steep, right? And the other thing is in the States, if you're a company that's operating in the state, and we all know how the states is basically rule, there's a lot of lawsuits. Can you talk about the legalities, the legalities in terms of lawsuits and how much money a company can lose in average, all of that stuff?
For sure. So, I mean, under AODA, the government of Canada can fine you up to $100,000 for every day that you're not compliant. Now, those are Canadian dollars, not American dollars, but with the amount of money the government's printing, that's not going to be very different for very long, I don't think, sadly. Buy Bitcoin. No, I'm just kidding. But in all seriousness, in the US, it's a real problem because there is no question that these people are in the right. The law is very clear. Every website needs to be accessible. And from 2018, the Department of Justice actually put out a ruling stating that business websites are considered places of public accommodations, which is a legal term that basically means they need to be accessible to everybody. If you have a restaurant, it doesn't matter how big the restaurant is. Somebody comes in a wheelchair, you got to serve that person. You don't have the right to refuse service to them based on a disability. So there's no question they need to be accessible. unfortunately, there are some big law organizations, law firms that have realized that this type of litigation is a real gold mine for them. And they go after
Yep.
people very aggressively for settlements. I'll give you a personal story that actually happened to me. The last time I left my zip code in this wonderful Corona fun time we're all living through was last February. Can't believe that's true. But last February, it's so depressing. But last February, I was in Vegas giving a talk about accessibility. And I get interrupted halfway through Kanye West style. Hey, I don't mean to interrupt, and just keeps talking. So the guy says he owns 60 locations of a payday loan company. Now, payday loan companies are worse than the mob because I don't understand how 3,000% interest is legal in America, but that is a separate issue. So he gets a demand letter for $10,000 because one of the 60 websites is not accessible. Calls his lawyer. The lawyer explains that it's what's known as a strict liability law. So because he wasn't accessible when the complaint was made, he really doesn't have much of a defense. Guy said, look, you can pay me 150 grand in legal fees over 2 years and waste all this time dealing with this and still have to pay the settlement, or you can just pay the settlement and get the rest of your websites accessible. The guy says, okay, I'll pay the settlement and try to get the websites accessible. So he writes a check. The day the check cleared, he got 59 more letters and had to settle for $600,000. Now,
Wow.
Yeah. Now that sucks for him, right? But to be fair, he makes his money off of poor people, so he can pay it. But
Absolutely.
for most people, most businesses, that's going to put them out of business. And that's, at the end of the day, even though they are legally and morally, in a large part, in the right, that kind of malicious litigation and prosecution tends to create more negative feelings towards the community of people with disabilities. And in my mind, it paints them as a litigious community, which is really not true. I know a lot of people who are listening have friends with disabilities. 20% of people around the world have a disability. It's not shocking that most of us know somebody with one.
Absolutely.
Those people's first instinct when there's no ramp somewhere, or when there's not a braille menu at a restaurant or whatever it is, their first instinct is not to call their lawyer and try to sue you.
Exactly.
Their first intent, they're going to talk to you and explain, hey, I really want to buy something from you. I want to use your service. Is there any way you could accommodate me?
Right.
Exactly. And you know what? The other thing is, like, even normal people that are walking down the street and stuff like that, and you see the posters, and you see the commercials from lawyers that try to take advantage of, oh, did you have an accident? Please call me. Because if you had an accident, you can get some money from a lawsuit, right? So it is kind of like a game out there, right? I'm all like in favor of making everything accessible. The more accessible it is, the better, right? Because we can accommodate everybody, and everybody needs and deserves to be accommodated, regardless of these capacities, right?
Yeah, and I think
100%.
to your point, I think to the point of the scared factors, the fines and the lawyers and the lawsuits, and the example you made. I mean, no one's trying to make an example of any. It's more of an understanding on a corporate level to think, okay, there are underlying agendas here, not only to be compliant to that 20% of the population that you need to be compliant for, but it's just an awareness. Just like you're making them aware, you're making them accessible. We're bringing awareness to you that potentially there are hidden fines that are there for you. So you as a business just need to know that. So that's what those examples, because I didn't know the level of fines other than until we started looking into this and making sure that we did everything right from a company perspective. So I think it's just it's not to be, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose $100,000 a day, or potentially these ambulance chaser lawyers are out there. It's just us bringing awareness to you guys as corporations to understand that this is a good thing, this is the right thing, but just to know that by not doing it, you also are prone to potentially getting litigation.
Exactly. That's the main thing. So one of the things that I'm very curious about, Rafael, is that I did a test, right? So I went into our BR website. This is kind of a few months ago when we were testing your tool and testing other tools, and doing our research. And what was really cool is that, okay, so I was inspecting the code for one of the images that we have on the website, and the images does not have an alt alternative text, right? So an alt tag, right? And as soon as I like I prompt the widget, in which like a blind person, for example, would automatically do that since they have the software to do that, install in their computers. Immediately, the AI picked it up, the image, and it actually read what the image was about. It said, small little girl holding a computer on the alt tag, and I was like blown out of my mind. I'm like, your AI is amazing. So can you tell about because we tested other tools as well, right? So, and this came about because of the need to be able to make one of our clients compliant. And that's how we tested a whole bunch of tools, but those tools don't do that. Your software does. What are the main benefits in the difference that you have, that you can provide, the value added that you can provide over all the other tools?
For sure. So I think there's two parts to that, and the AI is the first part. So we have multiple AI components that we use. We have OCR and Iris. OCR is optical character recognition. So basically, we can look inside of images, decide what's in there, read all the text that's inside the images, numbers, letters, whatever, and write it down as an alt. But on top of that, we have a contextual understanding engine. And the contextual understanding engine is something that is proprietary. It's been exposed to hundreds of millions of data sets. And basically, if you put it on Zappos.com, it's going to know it's on a shoe store. And it's going to use that information to inform all the other decisions it needs to make. Everything from rearranging the tab order, changing what headings are which, to helping with image alts. So those components work together really, really well. And because we're on almost 200,000 websites and millions and millions and millions of sessions every day, it gets better all the time. Plus, every time somebody points out a bug, which of course we're always looking for those and always open to them because AccessiBe is constantly evolving and improving, that gets fixed across almost 200,000 websites. Mm-hmm. So it's a constant improvement feature. On top of all of that, I think one of the biggest benefits of working with AccessiBe is our litigation support package. So to go back to what we said before, with all of this legal liability and stuff, we don't just tell you you're accessible. We stand behind it. Included in the cost of every license that we sell, and I know a lot of people say included in the cost, there's a lot of hidden stuff. There's no BS with this. Included in the cost of every license we sell is a litigation support package. In the event you get a complaint, a lawsuit, a demand, whatever, let us know, send us the information. We're going to do an audit. We're going to provide you with documentation that you're accessible. We're going to give an option for this complainant to complain more, and we'll address those again. We'll give you a form letter. We'll give you your purchase invoice. You can prove when you became accessible, your statement of accessibility, everything. We have helped over 5,000 clients with litigation like this. We have never had a client successfully sued after installing the tool, and we don't intend to start. This is a really important part of what we do because, like I mentioned before, while these people are definitely right, like websites need to be accessible, no question, the law is very clear, this type of litigation is not really helping the communities that need help, and it's not really furthering accessibility. We believe that the only way to make the world really an accessible place is for accessibility to be easy, automated, and affordable. Mm-hmm. And that's what we do.
Well, and I think, you know what, to that point, Rafael, I'm going to jump in there because, and you're bang on. So we at V-Wire Technologies, we're partnered with you, and we offer that solution to our clients because of all those factors. So by partnering with us is directly partnering with you and your company. And that's why, you know, we're being very transparent here, because it is all about affordability, accessibility, and making sure that you're compliant and you can turn this type of product around immediately. But equally as important, it continues to adapt with technology, never changes. And the nice thing about it is you're always there for your support, like I said. So that's really, really important.
Absolutely. And
from us or you.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, from a technical level, right? So we do what's called a Lighthouse reports for our clients, right? So Lighthouse, you go in your browser on Chrome, Firefox has it, Edge has it, and you can run a report on the site, right? And the different things that the report is based on, one of them is their performance, right? So the performance in terms of, you know, how fast your site is, how fast it is on a mobile browser as opposed to a desktop browser. And then the second one is the SEO component, right? Making sure that all the alt tags are there, the meta tags, and your SEO is right up there. And then the third one is accessibility. And this is how we came about, discovering a tool like AccessiBe through the work that we do for SEO, for performance, making sure that the website is fast, lightning speed, fast, using cache systems, using our servers on the AWS, our high speed hosting, all of that stuff. Reworking the code and making the website fast. But then there's this other part, which is the accessibility, that now we can actually have a tool like AccessiBe to help us out when we're providing this type of work for our clients.
Well, and you know what, I think, Dan, it's exactly right. And the reality of it is what you were talking about earlier, Raphael, with the cost. I mean, we build websites from, as you said, $3,000 to $5,000, very starter, very small websites, up to 100,000 plus websites. Because depending on the technology aspect and the depth and the level and the size, etc., obviously the cost changes and varies very, very dramatically. But with your product, it's an affordable add-on to a project, whether it's a $3,000 project or a $100,000 project, because to your point, developers' time is money, and that's reality. I mean, jobs are based on time spent, and running a business is all about, cost efficiencies and expenditures, etc. So talking about it from, on someone who's running a company and also deals with many, many companies who are looking at that, it's a very, very cost-effective solution to get immediate results and have the ultimate in technology to actually make your website compliant. It's critical.
Yes.
For all that.
And it's coming up all the time, right? So before it used to be, okay, can you develop a website for me? Sure. Okay, 15 grand, here it is. But then there's always the question afterwards, is my website going to appear in Google? It's my website, why is it so slow? And then there's this thing called compliance. So we are, now that we are working with different clients, as we go, we include all of that stuff in our projects. It's not just about building a beautiful website anymore. It used to be like that. It needs to be responsive. It needs to be SEO friendly. It needs to be fast. It needs to be compliant. There is so much complexity. And by having a tool like AccessiBe, it just takes that complexity out of the picture. So it minimizes the amount of complexity.
For sure. And you know what, the relationship aspect of business now is so much. I mean, we're very, very proud that we have a lot of repeat business. And it's because, I'm happy to do a compliant program for a client and charge them $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 of extra man hours. But I wouldn't be doing my clients justice if we didn't say to them, by the way, we can do this for you for this. And it's probably going to even be better than what we did.
Exactly.
Because it always has to be adapted and changed, etc. So we're better to be experts in what we do and get them to where they want to be, and then add the tools that are that much better and cost effective. And that's why we have incredible clients, because we are very trustworthy. And again, we share real results that are the most cost-effective solutions to give the client the ultimate business. So we're not worried about getting rich off one project. We want to do business with our clients for 10, 15, 20 years, which is what we've been doing, and offering solutions like yours through our opportunities. It's golden. So,
yes.
We appreciate it, and I know our clients do.
Yes. So one last thing that I maybe want to finalize our talk. I have actually two things. The first one is testing. Rafael, it's funny because this is one of the first questions that I asked you when we did the demo with you. Was hey, I went to the other tools. There's so many tools online that you can do, compliance testing and stuff like that. And I have this widget, this AccessiBe widget, and I went to one of those, and it gave me, not a compliance. What is that all about?
So AccessiBe is a session-based tool. So one of the beauties of it is we're not actually changing your source code permanently. Rather than making a template accessible, because you really can't, as an example, you could pick whatever colors you want as your standard colors on your website, but not everybody who's colorblind is colorblind the same way. So no matter what colors you choose, they're not accessible to everybody. We realize that the best way to provide accessibility to the widest range of people is to let everybody customize their experience. So everybody has the option to customize their session without impacting anybody else's experience. That being the case, a lot of the scanners out there scan your template.
Exactly.
And so, of course, they're not going to pick up what AccessiBe does. There are some options like Wave, for instance. You can turn on the AccessiBe adjustments and then scan it and it'll come up accessible. But we actually created our own scanner called ACE, ace.accessibe.com, if anybody wants to check it out. You can scan any website you want. You get a 10-page PDF report on how accessible it is, and it goes page by page.
I just used it for somebody last night.
Yeah. So, but how stupid is that, right? I mean, excuse me, my language, but like it's. You can't pretend that everybody has the same level of this capacity, right? So a colorblind person is not the same as a person that has epilepsy, which is not the same as a person that has motor function problems, right? So these tools they have this comprehensive template based approach to scanning the website, whereas AccessiBe, it depends really on the person, right? So it's session based. If I'm colorblind, then that session is made for me, completely personalized. Amazing job. You guys are, super good. And
we actually even use, not to cut you off there, we even use local storage, not cookies, so that if you do have a disability and you've made adjustments, you're coming back to the same site to buy the shoes that you saved last time or whatever, your settings will be saved, again, without impacting anybody else and without impacting GDPR or any of that compliance stuff.
Yes, and I went through the entire training, so thank you so much for providing that for us. So if you want me to do a demo for you, just make sure that go into LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, ping me, send me a message, and I'll be happy to schedule a one-on-one so we can go through AccessiBe and do a demo for your needs. The last thing that I want to talk is about this promotion. Since you're listening, and to everybody that's out there listening to us in this live, we have a little surprise for you. The first one is Rafael has extended the trial period for anybody that participated in this live to 15 days, I believe, Rafael.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so usually the trial period is 7 days. We have extended. I'm pretty sure if we have to extend it for another couple of days, that wouldn't be a problem because Rafael and his team are so good. And the second thing is we are.
I can do.
You have to talk to the people above, right? So and the second thing is we have a percentage a discount, so it's a 10% discount on AccessiBe. It's a limited time offer of 30 days, and if you reach us directly, you can do that. If you reach Rafael, he will happily redirect everybody to us, so we can take care of your accounts. So I hope you reach out, and that's about it. I'm super happy we had this conversation, very knowledgeable, and thank you so much, Rafael and Andrew.
No, it's my
so
pleasure.
great to be here.
Thank you.
And don't forget to subscribe. So we have our bwire.ca, so facebook.com/bwire.ca. We have our YouTube channels, bwire.ca as well, and LinkedIn, bwire Rhino. You can also befriend me. All right, so that's it for today, and thank you so much. Visit us on our website, bwire.ca, and I hope to see you next Friday, 4 o'clock.
Bye, everybody. Thank you, Dan.
Bye. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Rafael.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.